Warmer weather is finally here, and with it comes a potential nightmare for every busy parent who owns a car. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that each year, an average of 37 kids die inside a locked hot car. This phenomenon affecting infants to 3-year-olds is called pediatric vehicular heat stroke, and it happens in much cooler weather than you'd think.
Unfortunately, this has happened in temperatures as low as 57 degrees, which seems shockingly low. It really only takes about 10 minutes for the inside of your car to heat up by about 20 degrees. So if you think about what the ambient temperature is outside, it happens in a short amount of time, depending on how warm it is outside. And I know that some parents and caregivers think about like, oh, if I leave the window cracked, the inside of the vehicle won't be as hot, but it really does very little to help. That temperature differential is still a lot hotter inside a car. It's kind of that greenhouse effect.
That's Laura Dunn, a highway safety specialist at the National Traffic Safety Administration. She explains that young children are more at risk for these deadly situations because their bodies can't regulate heat the same way an adult does. In fact, their body temperature rises about 3 to 5 times faster, so it doesn't take long for a child to succumb to the heat. Still, many of these parents aren't willingly leaving their kid in a locked car. While the immediate reaction is often to think the worst of someone who forgets their child in a car, Dr. David Diamond says it's not an accurate marker of bad parenting. In reality, the neuroscientist says it can happen to anyone, even the most loving caregivers.
When people forget a child in a car, there's this knee-jerk reaction, which is we forget lots of things. We forget our keys, we forget to stop at the store, but you're not supposed to forget a child in the car. And then you see these vitriolic, really horrific comments online in which people now will say only bad parents forget kids in cars, good parents, and people say, I would never forget my child in a car. And I have spoken to so many parents who had actually judged other parents before and said, I would never forget my child in a car until they did forget their child and their child died.
Diamond is a professor at the University of South Florida. He's studied this phenomenon for 20 years in an attempt to understand it and hopefully find effective ways to prevent it. At the moment, he believes it's caused by a type of memory humans have called perspective memory. We use this form when trying to remember something that hasn't happened yet. For example, remembering to stop at the store on your way home from work, or recalling to take your medication at night before bed.
We assume that if it's important, we will remember it just at the time when we need to remember it. So we have to remember to remember. That's prospective memory. It's one of the most common memory failures. And that's why we know how routinely we are to forget to do things in the future, which is why when there's something important, we put it on our calendar and we get reminders. Because we know that if we don't get a reminder, we'll forget to do it.
Diamond studies the neurobiology of perspective memory, hoping to discover why it fails, especially when the stakes are so high.
If we could design the perfect system, we could have a little flashing light in the corner of our eye saying, your child is in the car, don't forget. But we don't have that. And the real problem is that our brain is always multitasking. We are thinking about what's going on now. We are planning on what we'll do in the future, whether it's this afternoon or farther in the future. At the same time, our brain is holding on to information that's relevant right now, such as my child is in the backseat of the car. I need to remember on the way to work to stop at daycare, take my child to daycare, and then continue on my drive.
When a child dies in a hot car, it's not always a matter of parent or caregiver neglect. Rather, it's that the habit brain memory system is so powerful that it's able to suppress our more conscious brain memory systems. The caretaker that normally goes from point A to point B without the child now has that subconscious motor brain memory system taking them right past the daycare. They've lost all awareness that their child is in the car, going into work without a thought of who they left in the back seat.
The brain then does something that in a sense is so cruel. As they go to work, or sometimes where people go home, they have a false memory. They know that they were taking the child to daycare that day, and they create this false memory that they in fact accomplished that goal. So you have people who will be at work for 8 hours, talk about their child, look at pictures of their child, and they will say to people, I need to leave now to go pick up my child at daycare. And when they go to their car to find that their child has died, they have this horrific, almost unreal experience that their child spent the entire day in the car and died of heat stroke.
But why would our brains have developed to allow such a horrible scenario to take place? Diamond says it's not a matter of brain evolution, but of modern technology. He says that the issue of children being forgotten in cars became more prominent after the invention of airbags.
Prior to the 1990s, almost no children died in hot cars because infants were always placed in the front seat if no one else was in the car. And it's really with the development of airbags that when they were deployed initially, you find children dying as a result of the deployment of airbags in the front seat. And because children were dying as a result of being hit by a deployed airbag, it's only then that children were placed in the backseat. And that led to the opportunity now to forget the child, which is out of sight, out of mind. Realize, if you're talking about human brain functioning, children were never out of sight. Someone was always caring for our children. And it's really only as a result of modern technology that we are caring for children that are completely out of sight, out of mind.
Dunn says the greatest risk factor for pediatric vehicular heat stroke occurs when there's a break from routine.
So a parent is taking the child to childcare that doesn't normally do that, or there's a doctor's appointment and the routine of that family is off for whatever reason. That is, I would say, the predominant risk factor. But, other risk factors that, have been noted for this are a change in how the parent interacted with the child during that drive, right? So maybe the child fell asleep during that drive when they usually don't, or a lack of cue for the parent, meaning, if they're quiet, you're not getting those auditory cues that you normally would, a stressful or distracting kind of experience during or before that drive, sleep deprivation, losing awareness of the child kind of at that choice point where you would turn left to go to childcare versus turning right to go to work. This is not something that happens to especially negligent parents. This is something that all people are susceptible to.
Although the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration doesn't track legal consequences, Dunn says that 20 states have unattended child and vehicle laws. In Texas, for example, if a child younger than 7 years of age is left unattended in a car, the penalties are 6 months to 2 years in jail and a fine of up to $10,000. If another child is in the car, that child must be 14 years of age or older to be considered an attendant. In Illinois, a child under 6 must not be left unattended in a car for more than 10 minutes. Any violation that causes the death of that child results in a prison sentence anywhere from 2 to 10 years. To reduce the risk of forgetting, the National Traffic Safety Administration offers some important tips, like never leaving a child unattended in a car for any amount of time.
It's just not worth the risk. You never know what will kind of stop you from your quick errand and change that scenario. So never leaving a child in a vehicle unattended is number one. I would also say make it a habit to look in the back seat. Every time you exit the car, make sure you have visual confirmation that your child has gotten to where they're supposed to be. Some tips that we've given mention perhaps putting, your work bag or your cell phone or something that you need for the day in the back seat. So you have to physically open that door and look to give that visual confirmation that your child is no longer in the vehicle. Another thing that I would say is lock the car. If you're at home, lock your car and put those keys and those key fobs up and out of reach. Talk to your kids about that the car is never a safe place to play.
Dunn also recommends having your daycare provider call you if your child doesn't arrive within a certain time frame. That way, if a child is left in your vehicle by mistake, you'll find out before disaster strikes. And since that can happen to even the most attentive parent, Diamond implores people to have compassion for parents who have left a child in a car as a result of a memory failure.
Their suffering is beyond belief. There have been parents that have committed suicide once they have learned that they caused their child to die. There are also parents and caretakers that are found guilty of manslaughter and even murder, and they then suffer a lifetime of incarceration, all because of a memory failure. So I really think it's important to be sympathetic rather than judgmental.
You can learn more about child passenger safety and our guests Dr. David Diamond and Laura Dunn on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer this week is Polly Hansen. Our lead producer is Kristen Farah. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. I'm Elizabeth Westfield.